Hey, hello, howdy, how you doing? Have you been playing survival games for a while and thinking to yourself, I wish there was a top-down, co-op styled survival game that was similar to DayZ but had hints of Project Zomboid in it? Well, you're in luck. In the developer's own words, that's what HumanitZ strives to be. In this video, I'm going to attempt to explore as many features as I can within the next 7 days. This includes map exploration, various forms of combat, the skill tree, building a base, and messing around with various hobbies such as fishing and mining. The team was kind enough to offer me a key so I could get this video out prior to release day, which means if you're watching this, the game is probably already out right now, and I'll have a link for it down in the description. Now, it's entirely worth noting that the game is releasing in early access, so there's still some work that'll need to be done on it. If you have any feedback, constructive criticism, or just compliments about the game, feel free to drop them in a comment and I can relay them back to the developers. With that covered, let's get into it. Starting off in character customization, it's important to remember that this is early access. We're not working with Baldur's Gate 3 levels of character creation here. But it's also not all that necessary in these games, since you'll likely find cooler gear out in the world later on. It's got everything you need to get started though. There's a few presets to choose from. You can change skin color, facial hair, and hairstyle, along with a few shirt and pants options, and either boots or sneakers. Once you've got your outfit picked out, you can move back to the single player menu and choose a profession. There's actually a ton of options here, from unemployed to car salesman to amateur boxer. In total, there's 11 occupations to choose from, each with their own positive associated traits. For this run, I went with the mechanic occupation, which gives a 50% buff when I use repair kits on cars. This may seem dumb to some of you, but I tend to take the Paul Walker approach to driving in video games, so I have a feeling I'm going to be using repair kits more often than the average player. When you start the game, you'll be prompted to choose a spawn location. Now, there's 4 options to choose from, but I'm just going to go with the starter home since I figured that's what most players will choose to start with as well. According to the devs, each in-game day amounts to about 1 hour in real life. As of the time of recording, sleep is currently disabled, so there's no way to pass through the night, but I'm sure that'll change in the near future. Anyway, here's where we spawned in at. Right off the jump, there's a shed here with some tools and a backpack that I grabbed. In my inventory was a note from a former survivor, which walks through the background and some lore as to how everything started. Feel free to pause here real quick to stop and read it if that interests you. In the next house over, I found a better backpack, a pistol, and a baseball bat. It already seems like we have some pretty solid weapons, so I'm excited to try them out. As I was making my way down a nearby road, I ended up finding a pocket watch in the trunk of a car. This was a huge find for me, since you can equip it by hitting Control and left clicking the watch, which displays the time on the top of the screen. Immediately after that, I stumbled upon my first Zeke, allowing me to test out the baseball bat on it. While continuing to loot, I ended up finding a jacket that, after putting it on, made me realize that I looked like if Nico Bellic grew out his hair a little more. With some more exploration, I found what appears to be a small farm with some zombies hanging out in the area. The melee combat feels like it's just missing something. Like, it feels satisfying to hit a zombie, but I wish there was more of an indicator when you're hit instead of the screen just flashing red shortly. As of right now, you don't really feel like you're getting hit at all. And it also makes it hard to track your health, considering mine is currently at the bottom left corner of the screen. While looting the area, I found some binoculars that you can use by placing them in your hand and right-clicking, though it's worth noting you can't move while your camera is panned out like this. Later on, I also found a hunting rifle in a closet, along with 6 bullets for it. I figured this would be a great place to set up shop in, so I marked the farm as a base on my map and got to work cutting down some trees to begin building out a workbench and some other utilities. And by that, of course, I mean I smacked a tree for a few seconds before turning to fight zombies for the next hour or so. After I realized I had an improvised hammer on me, I spent some time placing blueprints for a workbench, campfire, rain collector, and saw table before spending the rest of the night going around and trying to gather resources to complete these builds. One thing I do really like about the game is the fact that you can just smack a log with an axe and get wood from it. It reminds me a ton of Sons of the Forest, where instead of having a crafting option that automates it, you have to do some of the work yourself. At least for me, it helped keep the immersion that I was just another survivor trying to build out a camp. One other thing to note tonight: eating and drinking, at least with the lootable food so far, doesn't seem to heal you. Instead, you'll need to craft rags using fiber or ripping up clothing to craft into rags. Each rag heals for 15 HP, so it's probably a good idea to keep a stack on you as you loot houses and find clothing that you don't want to wear or need. That evening, while fighting some zombies that had wandered over, I leveled up, which means that we can go take a look at the skills table. There's 3 categories for skills: survival, which is all based around things like stamina usage, the ability to carry more weight at a time, and other things like that. The world category is largely reserved for co-op playthroughs from my understanding. It's got some solid skills like the ability to lockpick and use less resources for building, but I think the big one is Eagle Eye, which lets you know your friend's whereabouts. Combat is pretty self-explanatory. Almost every option basically just increases the amount of damage you do with a weapon type, with some extra skills for things such as better accuracy for weapons and less stamina usage. Since this is a single-player playthrough, I'm going to avoid this for now, but if this video is out when the game releases, I may be streaming this, so feel free to pop over to that if you want to see what this skill looks like in use. Since I'm not sure what weapons I'm really going to be using, I decided to just go with the Sprinter skill, which burns less stamina while sprinting, which I do love in this game. With day 1 in the books, I'm feeling pretty good about where we are so far. We have some weapons, food, and the campsite is slowly but surely coming together. That being said, I need some nails and scrap metal. Since I can't craft those, my goal for today is to find a ton of them and finish up at least the workbench, rain collector, and campfire. I'm also noticing that I become thirsty way faster than I become hungry. It's not a big deal though, it's just something I found myself having to check more often throughout this playthrough. There's some houses nearby, so I set out to go loot those and continue making my way down the road. One of my favorite aspects about HumanitZ is the takedown mechanic. You can hit the middle mouse button and it'll trigger a takedown animation provided you have over 50 stamina. This varies depending on if you're in front of or behind a Zeke and can change depending on which type of weapon you're using, and it leads to some really satisfying combat. Luckily, HumanitZ is a game for the people, and I was able to find a cowboy hat while searching a garage. Apparently making a fashion statement in the apocalypse is frowned upon, and I ended up pissing off all the nearby zombies immediately after slapping this bad boy on. The melee combat is slowly starting to grow on me, but one thing I really wish I could have is a hotbar key for applying bandages. It's becoming monotonous to constantly spam rags to heal up after each group of zombies. That being said, the combat is a nice step up in difficulty from Project Zomboid, a game I'm very used to. In Zomboid, you can really distill combat down to creating a conga line and just holding a key to walk in one direction while swinging. And you can't really do that in HumanitZ. Well, you can, you'll just end up dead in 10 seconds. It feels like this is much more about choosing how and when to engage instead of trying to just brute force your way through a group. After looting an ambulance and causing an alarm to go off, I threw on a mask to trigger all the rednecks and began making my way through all the Karens making their way towards me. Going back to the combat conversation for a second, this is what I mean. While kiting some Zeeks in a house, I jumped out and, figuring I had a few extra seconds, tried to perform a takedown on a rogue zombie. While doing so, I alerted another straggler who walked over and killed me while I was mid-takedown. You really need to choose when and how to engage. Had I just swung the hatchet at it, I probably would have been fine. Now, lucky for me, I'm not too far away from the initial spawn, so I was able to run back and reclaim my backpack. When you die, you keep your current gear and items in your pocket, but lose your backpack. While grabbing my backpack, my character glitched while in the middle of an animation and just kind of sat there crouched, which ended up killing me again. My second attempt, I used the hunting rifle to see where zombies were before moving in, grabbing my gear and dipping back out to base. After dropping all my junk off, I set out back to the starter camp since I noticed I missed a ton of potential loot back there. With the starting camp looted, I have a better backpack, some more ammo, and a bow. There's some rocks there that we can mine for minerals and resources, but we need a pickaxe for something of that sort. I'm assuming we can use a workbench to craft one, but we still haven't found any scrap metal or nails yet. While on my way back to camp, I came across a deer and was able to one-shot it with my new bow. If you have a knife, you can harvest the deer, which gives you some animal fat and venison for food. The only thing that really happened for the rest of the night was that I realized I leveled up at some point and used that skill point to grab lockpicking. Alright, so in order to get scrap metal, we need to find a sledgehammer. Once we have that, we can go commit some of that notorious Detroit vandalism on some old lady's car. After searching a few houses, I found one tucked away in a garage. Conveniently, there was also a destroyable car just right outside of it. As of recording this, these are the only cars that can be destroyed, but they look bright white or have a brighter blue or red color for them for reference. It really didn't take that long for me to gather a ton of scrap metal and encumber myself. I made it back to camp at around 8 o'clock that morning, and after dealing with some Zeeks, was able to make some pretty substantial progress to my camp. At this point, I really only need nails. A car would be nice too, but we'll worry about that later on. I love that you can retrieve your arrows after using your bow. It's such a nice touch, and I wish more games did this. Continuing north, I ended up finding what looks like an abandoned survival camp. There's a derailed train and a few tents here with some guns and ammo in them. There's a gold deagle here that I stole and an L85. The only problem is that I didn't want to give up my bow or sledge, so I just made a note of it on the map so I could come back here and loot it later on. Following the train tracks led me to this end cart where I found a variety of items, including an entire box of nails and an axe that I swapped the hatchet out for. At this point, my inventory was so full that I needed to head back to base, but not before making another note to come back and check out these buildings. No disrespect to the guns, but I honestly may just stick with being Legolas for the remainder of this playthrough. The bow is so satisfying to use and I love it. While sorting through my massive pile of garbage in the side room, a group of zombies somehow snuck up on me and tried to give me the old hot Cosby through the window. I was able to kite them back outside, but unfortunately, I lost my bow in the process. By that evening, I was able to fully craft the workbench, saw table, and chemistry station. I spent the rest of the night checking out the crafting menu and figuring out what I should prioritize for tomorrow. Oh, and it looks like our rain collector has been working overtime. Not sure we'll ever need to worry about water again. This may be redundant, but I do really like the cooking in this game too. The campfire reminds me a lot of 7 Days to Die, where there's a queue to add food and water to. In this case, I have 5 slots that I can add dirty water and raw meat to. More recipes can be found in the cooking station, but for this playthrough, I'll keep it simple with just a campfire. Using the chemistry station, you can combine painkillers and rags to make med kits, so I spent some time crafting a few of those for future use. I also crafted another bow to use since I'm lethal with them, as well as spending 2 of my skill points on the bow upgrade. Outside of a zombie raid at around 4 AM, the night was pretty quiet. I spent most of day 4 just doing some work around the base. To start, I crafted 2 additional storage crates, one next to the workbench and one next to the chemistry station. From there, I organized my gear into the crates depending on what they were. Outside of that, I set a respawn point so I can spawn back here instead of at the starter camp the next time I die, and began building out defensive walls to keep wandering zombies out. I can see why the appeal here is for co-op, since I need to carry each individual log back to a wall. It makes sense to have one person gathering wood while another builds here. In this case, it's just me, so I have the tedious work of having to chop down a tree, cut the logs into wood, and manually move each piece back to each individual wall. Something that takes a ton of time for such an easy build. It was around this time that I absolutely decimated my pants after eating 2 full bags of flaming hot Cheetos. While searching for new pants in a nearby house, I was able to successfully stealth take down 3 or 4 zombies before the rest of the group showed up. This should have been an easy fight, but currently, there isn't a way to determine which zombie you target. In this instance, there's no indication that the downed zombie isn't dead, so when I go for a takedown on what I thought was the final zombie, I accidentally aggro onto the one laying on the ground, which ends up getting me killed here. Safe to say, I'll be manning the bow from here on out. During my archery-induced rampage, I managed to find a pickaxe, which means we can now mine those massive boulders spread throughout the area. I found another in a nearby garage next to a truck in pretty good condition as well. I still need 3 more pieces to actually be able to turn the truck on, but it's better than nothing. If you don't know, you need a belt fan, a fuel pump, a car battery, and a starter motor in order to get the vehicle working. Which leads us into my big goal for day 5, to obtain a working vehicle. Now there is that truck we just found back by the first neighborhood we explored, but I still need several components to fix it up. I'm also sick, so I need to find some pants, preferably a hoodie, and then take some painkillers to heal up from that. Similar to games like Project Zomboid, you cough when you're sick, which alerts nearby zombies to your location. I chose to start back out by the barns near the end of the train tracks. There's some buildings in that area that I never really got the chance to loot, along with what looks to be a town just to the northeast. Apparently, my character hasn't been skipping leg day because he's out here two-shotting zombies with the calves of steel. Honestly, I think I'm going to rely on just spamming my roadhouse abilities until they group up, in which case I'll just switch over to the bow. Alright, don't judge, but I seriously thought the zombie was a traitor at first and got really excited, only for him to swing at me over the counter. While looting the garage outside, I found a starter motor, which I need for the truck. With that, and a battery that I looted from destroying a car wreck, I think I only need one more piece, so I decided to head back to the truck and take a look. Looks like all I'll need is a fan belt and a battery. As I just said, I have a battery back at camp, so all that's really left is the fan belt to find. The wandering hordes seem like they're getting larger, so I'm gonna need to start taking that into account when I'm just idling around base. They broke through one of the walls as well, so I'm gonna need to repair that at some point. Also, my baseball bat is at 0 condition, but hasn't broken yet. That being said, I'm gonna toss it to the side for now and swap to something better. It may just be me, but I feel like it rains constantly in HumanitZ. I don't think we've made it through a full day where it hasn't rained. I know there are seasons though, so it might just be because we're in the fall and it may rain more because of that. I didn't want to get sick again by getting caught out looting in the rain, so I chose to spend the rest of the day working on my camp some more. I built out 2 weapon lockers in the barn and moved all my guns and ammo out there. I had one more group of zombies come wandering through that I was able to try out my spear on, but other than that, it was another quiet night. I spent a lot of that time continuing to build out my walls and started adding some more storage to the living room in the house. Day 6 kicked off with another zombie raid. It was during this time I noticed a pretty large bug. For players like myself who like to go for longevity, the game resets your day counter based on your session. In this instance, I'm on my 3rd session during this recording. While I'm on day 6 of this playthrough, the game thinks I just surpassed day 3. This is because every time I launch the session, it resets the day, meaning if I join in and my session clock is at 12 PM, I need to play through the rest of the day and all of the next day before the in-game day will count as passing. This may be different on a single player session though, as it's worth noting that I'm playing on a closed private multiplayer session per the dev's request. Given that this is our 10th thunderstorm in 6 days, I've given up on caring and decided to spend some time trying out fishing. I don't have any bait yet, but you need fish to craft bait, so I'm assuming we can fish without using any bait, just at a lower catch chance. Or, I guess I just won't be fishing today. For some reason, the game doesn't register this massive lake as water. Kind of a bummer, but we'll figure something out. For shits and giggles, I'm just going to keep a running tab of how many thunderstorms we've hit today. So far, we're at our 2nd thunderstorm in 2 hours. Another combat bug I've noticed is that when you knock down a zombie, it'll stop the ones behind it temporarily. Like in this instance, I knocked down the first zombie here. The 2 behind it just stop moving for a second or 2 before registering where I am again and continuing. After several days of searching, I finally found pants. Around midday, I stumbled onto a junkyard where I found a car battery and a repair kit. I still need a fan belt, but we may actually be able to drive a truck before this video's over. Since we're pretty far from camp and I'm encumbered, I walked back to that old survivor camp, dropped off all my heavy junk, and continued back on my looting escapade. It was at this point in the playthrough where I came across something that I can already tell is going to keep me playing this game. While wandering down the road aimlessly, I encountered 2 hostile NPCs, one melee and one with a pistol. I was able to bait the melee enemy down the road a ways before dispatching him and healing up. For the gun-wielding lunatic, I utilized the tried and true serpentine method of zigzagging at him in a way that would make the Area 51 assailants proud. This was easily the most exhilarating fight in this playthrough for me so far, and it wasn't even that crazy. I'm really hoping there's some additional hostile camps nearby with more than just 2 NPCs that we can raid. If nothing else, the hostile NPC combat is a very welcome change of pace from just smacking zombies. Anyway, that afternoon I found a self-storage area littered with zombies, including a new toxic zombie. The gas mask description said something about these, so I should probably be wearing that going forward. It looks like I need to break down the garage doors here as well. Luckily, one of the zombies poked through the door, informing me that I wasn't alone here. Otherwise, I would have had no problem burning through all of my stamina before kicking in the door. Oh, and for those wondering, the lockpick mechanic is just Skyrim, except the keys are changed to W and S instead of A and D to move the pick. Alrighty then. Apparently zombies can kill you through closed doors without you being able to hit them. I spawned back at camp to the 3rd rainfall of the day, or the aftermath of that rainfall, and began making the trek back to the self-storage to grab my gear. After recovering my gear and killing the zombie that phased through the door, I broke down the garage entrance and began looting the area, swapping out all of my shitty gear for higher quality items. There's 2 chests in here, with one of them loaded with fuel pumps, a car battery, and repair kits, though I still need a fan belt and all of this is essentially useless to me at the moment. After breaking through the 2nd storage unit, I was able to find several more fuel pumps and repair kits, with the last crate holding 2 fan belts. I grabbed the highest quality one along with a starter motor that had double the quality of the one currently in the truck, and began making my way back to camp. There's some potato seeds in here as well, but given that there's only 1 day left in this video, I figure we'll save gardening for another time. Let's be real, it's not like there's a food shortage for us or anything even remotely close to that. I was able to make it back to the truck late that evening, and after killing the zombies in the area, added the fan belt and the high quality engine. I still need a battery, but we have that one I found earlier stored at the abandoned camp. It's in much better condition than the one at my base camp, so I was able to retrieve that and add it to the truck early in the morning of day 7. With that, it may have taken 7 days, but we have a functioning vehicle. While organizing my camp some more, I was hit with another wandering group of zombies, many of which were carrying compasses on them. Originally, I didn't even know this was an item, but it's one that I could see myself using constantly. Now, I get the point here of only having one slot for either a compass or a pocket watch. This is likely done so that, in a group of players, one can carry a pocket watch while the other carries a compass. However, this is a large hindrance to solo players like myself here. In the current setup, I have to constantly swap the items back and forth if I don't want to spam my map every 20 seconds to make sure I'm still going in the right direction. If you're quick enough, you can add each item, then trigger it by hitting 5 before swapping back, allowing you to have both the compass and the time shown on your UI at the same time. Though, I'm pretty sure this is a bug and will likely be patched out at some point. Alright, we're running out of time here, and I have some things I want to check out still, so with that, I crafted a blueprint for a furnace and set out to do some mining. I'm not sure how to obtain the cement needed for the forge, but I'm just kind of hoping we'll come across it at some point while wandering through our daily morning monsoon. Mining is pretty basic. You just take out a pickaxe and smack the colorful rocks 3 times before they drop 3 resources. There's some nice variety here, but we don't have a ton of time to explore each resource and what it's used for, so I'm just going to assume that they're used for gunpowder and to craft bullets since there aren't any iron nodes here. Later on, while looting a house, I shattered a window, pulling in a ton of zombies, which gave me an excuse to finally use a pistol. Looting the area afterwards, I uncovered a military backpack and a pump shotgun, so I grabbed both of those. While driving back to camp, I found a boat near the water that I wasn't able to fish at. There's a rag that I mistook for a note here and spent way too long trying to grab. Anyway, finally back at camp, I grabbed some shotgun shells and a gold desert eagle before hopping back in the truck and setting off to find a place to try and fish. Over the next hour or so of driving around, I smashed into random cars and debris and just looked at general buildings. The map itself is absolutely massive, considering it takes several in-game hours to even move out of one of the grid squares on foot. This makes cars essential early on, which I wish I would have known because I feel like I really didn't get to explore all that much in the time frame given. That being said, this is the second body of water I found that I'm not able to fish at, so hopefully it's just a skill issue on my end and something that I'm doing incorrectly. All things considered, this was my first 7 days in HumanitZ and what they look like. There's some pretty large issues that I hope get fixed, but aside from that, there's a lot to like about this game. The melee combat is kinda meh, but the bows and gunplay are very addicting and provide at least some level of skill in aiming. Like I said, the map is massive, and looking back, I feel like I didn't really do it justice. There's tons of POIs to explore in a variety of locations, from gas stations to survivor outposts, to trading hubs and more. Considering the fact that it took us almost the entire time just to get a car working, I feel like we were right on the cusp of really getting into that exploration portion of the game. I'll leave it at that for now though. Let me know what your thoughts on the game are down in the comments. I'd love to know if this is something that you'd like to see more coverage on, or if it's something that you think needs to cook a little longer before we revisit it. HumanitZ will release into early access on September 18th, and I've posted the Steam link for it down in the description if you want to check it out then. Again, this just released into early access today, so I have a link for it down in the description if you want to check it out. Thank you to the developers for giving me a key to play this game early access before release, and a very special thank you to my YouTube members and Patreon supporters who make it possible for me to even try out games like this at all. I appreciate you all. And as always, thanks for stopping by.